Welcome back, Realty Pros, and thank you so much for taking the time this Thursday evening to join us for our new agent training. Thank you again for those that are in the office, as well as those that are joining us via Zoom. We appreciate everyone in taking their time to just come and join us, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. So we have again this evening with us, Angela Skipper, and Angela is our seller agent. So she's going to be sharing with us again this evening, working with sellers. This is part 2. So thank you, Angela, for taking your time as well. And thank you for sharing with us. We appreciate your being here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you take it away. If you all have any questions, make sure you guys put it in the chat and or unmute yourself so that we can, Angela can address any of the questions that you may have. Also, before we begin, I wanted to, because we have so many people on the Zoom line, I wanted to remind everyone of this Saturday's offer writing boot camp. Please make sure you take some time this Saturday to join us for that offer writing boot camp. That's going to be a great asset for you. So, and it's here in the office from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So make sure you just carve out some time so that you'll be able to join us for that. Okay, Angela, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our new agent training. This is a series on working with sellers. And if you just give me a minute, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you guys see this is Brokermint? A thumbs up. Okay. Just want to welcome everyone back. I want to continue where we left off last week, but let me give you a little bit of a recap for those of you who weren't able to join us, just so that you're all caught up, as I continue. But last week we talked about what happens if you get a seller lead. We want to know what to do with that. And, we talked a little bit about using the listing intake form. So what we did is we came in here, created a transaction because, hey, we have the seller who we want to work with. We created the transaction. Let me pull up the transaction that we created so that I can bring us up to speed here. Okay, so this is the transaction we were working with. We created this, we added our checklist, which was our Maryland listing checklist. This is what you would do if you were working with the seller, especially if it's in Maryland. And we didn't get too far on here, but hopefully we'll make a little bit more progress today. So we went through the pre-listing prep. It's the very first, well, it's the second thing here. The very first thing is the client contact information. As we go through this, I'm also going to bring attention to some things that that I like to use in Brokermint. I use this for everything pretty much. But one thing I like is next to each of these tabs. So this whole thing here, this is our what do you call it? It's our checklist. Let's just stick with that. And it says here add client contact information, which we've already done. But if you'll notice here on the right, whenever you highlight one of these, if you just hover over it, it tells you what this tab is for and what it's intended for. If you're not sure what to put there. But basically, we have some information for this seller. We've put in what we know, and as we learn more, we can always go back here and update. Especially after the property goes under contract, we can then come here and update buyer information, buyer agent information, and anything else that we may be aware of, maybe even the title company information. But again, moving on, you can see here next on the second tab, complete pre-list prep. We've already done that. We've exhausted that topic to the point where we can move on. One other thing I'll bring to your attention is that in addition to that intake form, We also discussed the documents that were needed in the MLS that we use to prepare us for that listing appointment. One of the documents, it was the public record that helps us to verify, after gathering the information from the intake form, they might have said, hey, this is my name. We notice on the public record, maybe their name is a little different. So these are things we may want to pay attention to so that we know that we're getting the proper people who actually own the property and who should be on these documents, especially if it's one person, let's say they've gone through a divorce and you see two names in the public record. These are things that we'll want to address early on. But basically the public record is one. Another one is CMA. That's going to help us with pricing, helping the seller price their home, and then the seller's net sheet. And that basically creates, it sets an expectation for that seller so they know what they're, going to gain from this, what they're walking away from. Puts those numbers into perspective for them. So, just those are the documents pretty much that we need to go forward. Today, we're going to use this checklist here, and we're going to access the forms needed for your appointment that are actually here in Brokermint, contract forms, things like that. So it's basically going to be our listing agreement and our disclosures. Those are the forms that we want to prepare before we go on that listing appointment. Some people may not prepare those forms. I feel that, the opportunity may present itself when you get there. Some people may go to that appointment and then not thinking that the person wants to move forward. After you give them, you present, you do the listing presentation, you show them the value you're bringing and what you intend to do. You want to be prepared in the event that they are ready to sign that day. So the listing agreement. So I'm going to go through some of these forms just to make you familiar. If you've never, maybe you've never done a listing or even worked with sellers. If you have, then this is a great refresher if you haven't worked in Brokermint. But let's start here. So next to listing agreement, these are the forms that you would use. I love how Brokermint populates these for you. So I'm going to click on our signed listing agreement and the forms that we're going to use. So one thing I like about this is it automatically populates the forms for you, making it super easy for you to, it's a time saver, right? It gives you the forms that we typically use when we go on a listing appointment and that we need to get the seller to sign, from our agency disclosures, dual agency, consent for dual agency and dual agency within the team. And then the fourth one here is our exclusive right to sell residential brokerage agreement. I want to make sure that you're familiar with most of the forms. I'm not going to go into detail with each one, but I'll show you how you can get more information there if you're not sure how to fill out the forms. Financial condition of property disclosure. I really like that one because when, on that listing intake that we did prior to going to the appointment, we asked the seller some of these questions and perhaps they disclose, oh, I know what my balance is. I know that I have a second mortgage. This form right here will allow them to disclose that as well. And again, this is just for you so that you know how to move forward, how to proceed. And our lockbox addendum. Now down here, we have add more forms and attach documents. If there are documents that you want to attach, you already have the file saved, you can attach it here as a PDF or wherever you have it saved. Otherwise, we can go to add more forms here. And then we have all of these documents here, whether you want to select something from our company library, we have MAR and our PG CAR documents. Okay, I'm going to go into this a little bit later, so I don't want to, hold on one second, guys. All right, I'll go into that a little bit later in detail, but I just want you to be familiar with these forms are populated. Now, if there's ever forms that are populated that you don't need, all you have to do is exit out here to delete them. In this case, these are some forms that we would definitely want to use. All right. All right. And to move forward, I think that's next. I can't see past my bar here. That might help. Okay. Okay, so this is what pops up next. Actually, more fields pop up, but all we want to do is, now all the information is in here because of the purposes of training. This is just enough to get us started. But we want to make sure that we include our seller's name and your name as their listing agent. All these other fields you don't need, so you can remove them, okay? because basically what it's doing is prompting signatures on the actual document. So we're going to remove all of those. There were some other fields here that I removed earlier. If you accidentally remove one that you didn't mean to, you can always go to add signer and add it back. The other thing is, Darlene, you had a question? Okay. An additional seller? That's a good question. So Darlene asked, how do you add a seller? Let's say there's 3 sellers. So we can go to, let's go to add signer and see if we can add another person. Let's try that out. Let's see if we can add another person. Add this person. I'm not sure. Can we add another seller? We can, okay, we can assign them. Do I have to go back to the edit screen to do that? Can't see it. Hold on, you guys. Oh, other parties? Nothing there. There's 2 here. I don't know who these people are. Just click on one. Okay. So if the question is, if we have 3 sellers, if you have 3 sellers, how do we include their? Okay. All right. So let's see how this works. Adding, we're going to remove Justin. We'll keep Nadia on there and see if we can add her. That's a great question. So, and another thing, we have this signer order. I always like to put my client's name first, and I like to drag mine last so that once they finish, you know, approving all parts of the contract, then I can sign off and it'll be ready to go. So let's move to next and let's see if that will populate for sellers. I'm going to go straight to the listing document because it doesn't list it here as seller. We'll have to manually just add them there even. Okay. So that's a great question. Darlene asked if we had a 3rd seller, what would we do? You can add them here and then we can manually add them. Okay, it's only populates for 2 names, but you can always manually add them. All right. I'm not going to go through the whole document, but basically I just want you to be aware that, let me get rid of this one. How you navigate through here, adding signers, removing people who aren't going to be on that document. Okay. So once you do that, I'll go ahead and go to next. Once you move to next, what it does, it allows you to, like Darlene was saying, how do you add someone? We can put a text here and put their name. And then these are different icons that you can use. Some of the more frequent ones that we use are signature and initials. You can always add date as well. Any additional information that we need to add to the contract, we can use our text box. And basically that's just a matter of selecting the text box and then we can create it, put it wherever we want in the contract. So I'll find a spot. For instance, here, you know, the agent's name is in here. Sometimes you have to go in and type this. And it's important to go through your whole contract to make sure that all these fields are complete. All right. We don't want to assume that everything's going to populate, but we want to go ahead and complete that where check boxes are. Now, if you're working on this and you don't have all the information, you can always go here and save and close and come back to the document. But once everything has been completed, you can click this arrow here and then hit send for e-sign. I'm going to click it because I want to show you what's going to happen. So of course, this information will be filled in, but this is the box that pops up when you're sending someone documents to sign. So all right, yes, let's go back in. That's a good question. because now I'm curious. So let's just go back. I'm sorry. So someone asked the question, if you add the third person, which we're gonna go back and do this. Now this is something that, see if we can figure this one out. I'm gonna put this name back, hold on. And see how this works. We're gonna add this seller, because it's not assigned as seller, we're saying like, how do you select that signature? So if I add this and go to next, get rid of this. If you accidentally put some of these extra boxes, you can click on them and delete them. You have to click on text, click on that field, and then you can just delete. So let me go back and see if we can add this third seller. So this is what they're asking. We have Ed and Sharon's seller, and we want to add Nadia to see if we can add her on there. I can text Nadia's name, but when we click on seller, Nadia's right there. So we can assign her as a seller. I'll show you how to do this. Text. If we have Ed, Sharon, how you want to situate these, this is how I would do it. I'm going to minimize this. Sharon, these are the names, right? So we want to add Nadia's name. She's the third owner of the property. For sake of time, I'm just going to put Nadia so that you are familiar with extra fields. We're going to delete them. Yes. So there's Nadia, right? And signatures typically, let's see, aren't, where we put them on this form. Signatures would go up here, right? Signature. This is seller 1. This is the signature for seller 2. And we're going to click signature. We're going to click on this and we're going to assign this to Nadia. We're going to put on, and we can click our date there and we can assign that to Nadia as well so she can fill that out. You guys, I'm learning too, because I didn't know how to do that. So whoever asked that, Darlene, and whoever continued to press on that question, thanks for asking that. So what we're going to do is we can save and close and go back and add additional information, but we're going to assume that we're finished. We're going to hit this arrow here because it's going to send for e-sign, right? So we have email addresses here for some people. You can edit this field here where it says clean signed documents, but just so you know what they're going to receive, this is what it looks like. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to come back out of here. One thing I let all my prospects or leads, I let them know, all my emails aren't coming from Angela at Porterhouse. So, I make them aware if I'm working with a buyer, of course, you may get emails from Bright MLS. You may get some that are from Brokermint, which will appear as, I think, Porterhouse International Realty Group. But I want them to pay attention to those so that if they're going to spam or, I want them to be, to look out for those particular emails to come from me. But this will come from Porterhouse International Realty Group. All right, so I'm going to log out of here. And this is basically what you're going to do for your listing agreement, okay? In addition to the listing agreement, so we have all the other documents, right? We have our listing agreement. Now we're moving to our disclosures. So I'm going to click on here and I'm going to show you these forms. Now, these are the forms that populate when we are selecting disclosures that we want to send to our seller. All of our disclosures, we have this offer instructions for Bright MLS. And I love that because we submit we recommend and suggest that buyer agents submit their clients' offers through our platform. It makes it so much easier for us to manage. I'll get into that a little bit later also, but I want to come through some of these here. These are disclosures that automatically populate. And so again, like we did before, if there's some that don't apply to your seller, you can remove them. If your house was built in 2010, we may not need this lead-based paint disclosure, so we can just delete that and get rid of it, right? Maybe if it doesn't have an HOA, there's different things you can go through and remove these. But what happens if there's documents that are missing that you want to find? We can go to add more forms. And, we can access a lot of our documents from the actual Brokermint library. I like to come right here to MAR, and I'm going to show you a few documents that are, You have a question? Hang on one second. Darlene has a question she's going to ask. Okay. Darlene has a question and I'll address it as soon as I get through this portion here. So I just want to bring to your attention, there are some common documents that, we do need to use as disclosures. Under brokerage forms and addenda, we'll just scroll through. Like let's say solar panels. Let's say your seller has solar panels. This might be a disclosure that you want to add, okay? Another thing, let's scroll through contract addenda. Is there something here that we might add? So I'll bring your attention to this, additional as-is provisions. If your seller's selling their home as is, you may want to select that one as well. One thing I want you to also pay attention to is the date on the bottom of this form. It says, if you see down here, can you guys see that? 10/22. That means this form was updated this month. And there have been a lot of forms that were updated this month. So you definitely want to pay attention to those. Read through these new documents. I can share with you, actually go to marylandrealtors.com to get an update on what those forms are. Even though we have access to some of these forms in Brokermint as a reference, just keep in mind, those aren't going to be updated immediately. So when you're referring to some of those to help you fill out forms, the majority of the documents that you need will be there. When it comes to these newer forms, review them. I'll try to give you a list at the end. I do have some that I've noted to share with you. But basically this as-is addendum is a little different. Actually, we've talked about this. And the regular language in the contract, properties are pretty much, they're sold as it, when they're sold as is, usually they're free and clear of debris and things like that. This document now makes it a little easier to, it just makes it clearer. Because if you are getting a house, sometimes you say it's a house sold as is, and they're not removing the items. The contract says that they are, but you can let the buyer and seller, they can agree up front that we have been fully made aware that the items will be left in the property. So it allows you to do that. If it's any reference to any, I think this is HOA and homeowner association documents and things like, you can disclose that here as well, or delete them from the contract. So you can see this says deletion of property condition requirements that are normally in the contract. This form allows you to remove those. Okay, remove those. It's the original language. There's a few other forms you might notice some over here that you have used before. I just want to point out a few. There was another one. Oh, let's say you have a short sale. Here's a short sale addendum. We can throw that in there, right? If you know that your listing is going to be a short sale. But for the most part, when you get a chance, try to review some of these documents so you are at least familiar with them. And then we have a PG card tab here, which is nice as well. We can select, if you're doing, your listing appointment in Prince George's County. There are some disclosures that we can use. Here's a common addendum of clauses. A lot of the times your buyer may submit an addendum of clauses for something they want to include in the contract, but your seller may use this as well. Why would a seller use this? Anyone know? Okay.
Changing.
Yes. Who was that?
I think changing contract date.
Okay, so to change the contract date, we do have an addendum to change the expiration date, to amend the price. There is a document for that. But what I'm going to show you here, one of the more common documents, let me see for the addendum. You're not changing the date on this addendum of clauses. You have transfer of recordation taxes. If your seller knows up front, hey, I'm willing to pay all of them. Well, I don't know that we'll ever see that, but they can put that here. One of the more common ones that we'll see is contingent on seller purchasing another home. So if you're representing a seller who's purchasing another home, it's a document you may want to either use to disclose so that everyone's aware. Another one is here, our home warranty. Is the seller paying for the home warranty? Is the buyer paying for it? When you make that available, here's a spot where you want to do that, to include that in your contract or into your disclosures. This is the addendum of clauses. Yes, if you're interested in change of terms. I think that's under these here. So if you're interested in change of terms, I'll just tell you, you can scroll through here to look for them. Also, you can come up to here. Our Brokermint library has change of terms as well, but you can go into this field here and write change of, what's this, well, terms? I don't know. We're gonna figure it out.
You have
There we
to,
go. So you can kind of play with this field here, throw in different things. We put terms and all the documents that say that. So change in terms is right here under MAR. Click on that. These are change of terms. Yep, Darlene said this form has changed too. So when you see that 1022, just know that this is a new form. You may want to review it if it's different from the form that you used before. Okay. So these are forms that we would use for specifically for our listing appointment, and unless we are changing the terms, but we wouldn't use those for our disclosures either. But this is definitely a form where you want to know where it is. In the event that you don't, again, the company library I think may have change of status. I don't know if it has change of terms. Either way, you can type it in here and find whatever form you're looking for. I don't know if there's another form that, you know, what's another form that you guys might want to find? Property inspection. Well, you type in property and then there's like, oh, there's the form. Because some people will say, hey, I can't find the form. Use the search field. Put in just enough information that will allow them to say, hey, these are all forms that are associated with that. That'll help you there, okay? So we're back to here. We added a few documents. This house has solar, it's selling it as is, and addendum of clauses because they want to buy a home too, okay? You may find out later on there's other documents that you need to add there. Get as much information as you can up front. Otherwise, you'd have to go back and you can add to this, all right? Here we go again with the disclosures. We're going to remove anything that we don't need, okay? We'll leave listing agent because sometimes it does require our initials, right? Do you remember which forms we use that require a listing agent's initials? Do you know which disclosures we use that require a listing agent's initials? Does anyone know of any? So Anita said lead-based paint, that's one there. So, you know, we want to include that. I always include the listing agent. And then once you populate everything, fill everything out, and you send it for seller to sign, if your name isn't needed, they'll tell you, hey, remove this name. There's no one assigned to sell it, or you acknowledge that, you know, the listing agent is signature or initials are not required on that document, okay? We've assigned our order because, again, I like it in order for my sellers to sign first. And then we hit next. And then we can see all our documents. And again, I love the instructions here. If you, sometimes when you're a new agent, you're like, oh, I have to fill this out differently. It's important to make sure that when you upload those disclosures that you include this. I like to include it in the remarks as well, because sometimes people, you know, they need the extra reminder. But read through this yourself so that you understand how this is supposed to work. We're always on the, if I'm always listing and I'm never, let's say I haven't submitted an offer on a porterhouse listing, I wouldn't know what to do. So try to go through it and put yourself in the buyer's shoes and make sure they can understand it. I've never had a buyer have an issue with these instructions. It's usually user error or user error or user error. And that's it. So it's straightforward though. Right. Yep. So Anita was saying a lot of the times they don't pay attention. That's why I put it in the remarks section. I want that agent to know this is how you submit the offers, and I make it a requirement. This is how you must submit the offer. And Anita was saying sometimes they'll email it to you, and then they'll text you or email you and say, "Hey, did you get my offer?" That's when I'll reply to them. You know, the instructions are just submitted through the link, and then I'll assist them if they need their handheld to get it through to that link. But I still want to submit it that way because it's going to help you to organize all your transactions, all of your contracts that come in, right? So again, if we go next, again, we can come up here, we can add whatever, we can add text, fill in check boxes, signature, just so that if you haven't used it, I'll just show you how the checkbox works. even though there's no checkbox field here, you're basically just going to click that checkbox up top, and it allows you to put that checkbox in whatever box we're trying to fill out. You can size it because we don't need our boxes that big, but we can make them smaller, and then you can check it, or you can assign it to my seller so that they can check it. And I'm going to tell you why that's so important to know how to do. When you have these disclosures, you want your sellers to fill these out. I have had to assist sellers fill this out, but I usually am merely assisting them fill it out. We want them to disclose and fill these documents out. And when I say that, we're filling out this form here, they're signing them. But there are some fields here where they really need to complete them, right? They're disclosing information on their property, right? We can assume what these things are, but then if there's an error and we filled it out, I wouldn't want to be on the other end of that conversation. So I like to let them fill it out, which means if this isn't populated, either you're going to put in all these check boxes so that they can fill it out, but at the same time, you're covered because you didn't fill it out for them, okay? Okay, I have a question for everyone. There's one disclosure that we are not allowed to assist with in any way at all. Can anybody, a brave, non-secret agent, tell me?
I believe it's the disclosure disclaimer form that we're not supposed to assist at all. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. I'm gonna scroll through. That's our property disclosure disclaimer, okay? And that's the one that you do want them to fill out. I'm gonna show you a copy because I know here it is. Maryland Residential Property Disclosure and Disclaimer Statement. I think the only thing I usually fill out is the property address. Sometimes I'll put the legal description. Other than that, all this here, they fill all of this out. See how these are pre-populated? It's made it super simple for them, right? So we want to make sure they fill this out. And I'll tell you what I also like to do. Once they fill out all these disclosures, I'm going to get out of here for a quick second. Once they complete all these disclosures, make sure you review them very thoroughly. It's happened to me. I hope it doesn't happen to you, but I've received all signatures. We move forward and I go to upload my disclosures and I realize they missed one checkbox or they missed something. It's a pain. So before you get to that point, once those documents are signed, always from your listing agreement, disclosures, always review those again. We think that we are putting initials where we intended. Maybe they got accidentally deleted or someone just somehow managed to skip over it. But it's our job to review those documents in detail before we move forward. Definitely want to do that with your listing agreement, right? You want to review those as well. Any more questions? Yes. So let's see if there's someone out there who can help Rhonda. She's saying give an example of when you can use a general addendum.
No, I was asking for anybody new. I know why, but I was just asking for any of the new agents that maybe they don't know. So.
Okay, so I appreciate that, Rhonda. I'm gonna address it a little differently. And I'm glad you brought that up. So there is another document that we have, and I'm going to show you. See how we were coming here to fill out these forms, and let's say for whatever reason, we do want to add a general addendum. I'm going to back up and I'm going to find that general addendum. And then we'll come up with the reason to use it.
Okay, yeah, because just as an example, because I know we have all sorts of addendums for specific things, and I just wanted people to be clear on why we would use the general addendum.
Yes, so I'm glad that you brought that up because that's a very good question. So we're going to add the general addendum, okay? And I'm going to tell you, some good reasons why you can use it. Reasons I've had to use it, both with buyers and sellers. Let's say you're making a change to our contract. I've had to use it quite frequently. A lender may come back and say, hey, someone's name was different. I need their name to appear differently. Maybe it was their first and last name. We want to add their initials. I get that request a lot of the times from lenders who say, hey, we want to make sure it's consistent throughout the contract. or we're changing the names or the terms on the contract, that the buyer's name should have read this, and it may include a middle name, okay? But there are lots of reasons that we can use this. I would just caution you to be careful, because if we have a document here, we want to use the document that already has legal language, because we're not attorneys. So whatever you put here, usually if my lender says I need you to change the name, I tell my lender to send me an email with the names that you want. And I'm comfortable moving forward with that. Otherwise, if you are uncomfortable filling that out, because it is so, it's very general, it's based on your language that you're going to use, you can always check with your broker.
Angela,
Yes, ma'am.
it's a Cheryl.
Hi.
If you had to extend a date, maybe the closing date or something like that, would you use a general addendum for that?
Yeah, I'm going to show you. No. So-
That's actually what I used mine for one time. I have used it for that.
So that's not where we want to go. Let's go to terms. We have a change in terms document right here, right? Change in terms, term of brokerage agreement, list price, lease price, and then we have other. Is it status or change in terms? They changed the form, so I'm glad you asked that. But either way, this is usually the form that we use.
You would use other?
Well, it says term of brokerage agreement.
It's a different form, Angela. This is
Huh?
Mark.
I think it's change of status. Hold on, let's try. So we're gonna do this together. I'm gonna put in status, because there's another form that we can use. But that's for listing contract. She's talking about just generally speaking, the
The closing
change
date
in
or,
closing date.
yeah.
So I
Can y'all
think that,
hear me?
yeah, I think that that's pretty straightforward. You can use a
Nope.
general addendum for that. Both parties will agree that you're extending the settlement date for another day. Yes, that's a great reason to use that form.
Okay, thank you.
Angela,
Yep.
can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hey, this is Margaret.
Hi, Maggie.
There is a change of term. It's a different one from the one that you just showed. I've had to go and get it from Maryland Realtors website, but there is one that allows you to change the date.
So let me tell, so if you go to Maryland Realtors, there are additional forms that we can access there as well. My concern was there may have been one there, but because they updated these documents in October, that's probably why we're not seeing it. The original one had that. Actually, I can tell you where it is. Let's see. Because I just pulled one of these last week and it was there. I didn't see it, and when I pulled this revised form, it doesn't have that on there. So there is the other field. You can use the other field. Otherwise, a general addendum would be fine in that case. But pay attention to these forms, because the as-is addendum has changed. And there's some other forms that I was going to bring up. There's there's a lot that pertain to the residential contract of sale. They've made changes there, and they've removed what they've called retired addendums that we don't need anymore because the residential contract of sale has changed. So I would definitely, I'm not going to say read over the new one, even though you must do that, but go to where someone specific, Maryland Realtors will specifically point out what those differences are. You might understand it a little better after seeing what changes they made and why. If you guys get your Maryland Realtor magazine, I was going to do one of these with it, but I didn't have it. In the Maryland Realtor magazine, do you have one? Can you hand it to me real quick? Can I see it real quick? Yes. So all of you should have gotten this. Oh, you probably can't see it, but the Maryland Realtor magazine that we get, it breaks down, it addresses all of the contract changes. They do have a QR code that you can scan, but it takes you to Maryland Realtor. So Jasmine dropped it in the chat. Yeah, it takes you to the Maryland Realtor page and to those documents. But Jasmine's dropping it in the chat. Yeah. Yes. So it was funny. I was reading this magazine yesterday, and I had an agent call me and ask me questions, and I had just read it. Darlene's raising her hand. I wasn't going to say who it was, but it doesn't matter. We were figuring it out together. So, but it's just, you want to be aware of those. We don't want to discover those changes while we're sitting with our client or negotiating different deals. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to move on. Does anyone have any questions before I move on? I'm glad you guys are participating. We're getting a lot of really good questions. So
Hey, Angela,
yes, sir.
it's Tremont. No, I was just gonna say that
Still
the
there?
magazine, everybody's magazines in their mailbox at the office. So
Well, everyone doesn't get theirs sent to the office. Some of them get them sent to home, but if you haven't
Okay.
received yours, come into the office, you probably have it in your mailbox. Thanks for mentioning that as well. If you go to MarylandRealtors.org, you will see the form that Maggie was talking about. That form is still there. Okay, so you can still use that form, but the ones that are retired usually won't be there anymore. So you can use one. You'll notice. Well, sometimes you'll notice there's more than one general addendum, especially if you're going from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So as long as they're available there, then you can still use those. So Maggie, yes, that document, you're right. That document is still there and we can still use it. But this is all here for our convenience as well. So there are some rare times where we can't find the document we need and we have to, oh my goodness, we got to go all the way to MarylandRealtor.com to try to get it, right? So it's still pretty simple, but thanks for, this is good. We're making some progress here. So we've added all these different documents. We've been through a general addendum in there. Going to go to next and just kind of move us through because there's some things I want to cover before we finish. Again, you can add signer. There's different things you can do. As same as the other document, I can move forward, but it's going to allow us to make the changes, add text, add initials, signatures, check boxes, and dates. You can save it and come back to it. I'll show you what that looks like. If I save the document, any changes that I made, I'm not going to go back to it because we didn't add anything other than I think a random checkbox in the middle of the page. But you can go back there and make the changes, and then you can click on the document, and we can go to edit and e-sign. That will allow us to go back in and continue to make changes, add signatures, initials. If you missed an initial and you think, oh no, they signed it. One thing you'll notice is here where it says uploaded. When the person has signed it, it'll say signed there, okay? Another thing I wanted to bring to your attention that I like using with Brokermint, I'm gonna go back up to where we have pre-list. Actually, let me go up to client. You see where I have add client on the right where it says comments and activities? I like keeping notes of everything that I do. You never think you're gonna need it, but one day you may. And so right here, it says verify Sharon's email. Let's say when I met with my clients, Ed is the one who said, hey, I want to sell my house. He didn't tell me there was a Sharon. I found out the public record, there's an Ed and a Sharon. So then I put verify Sharon's email. That was my reminder that this task isn't complete. You know, because there's no checkbox here, but it was my reminder, right? I'm sorry, here's the checkbox. This is why this box isn't checked because I still have some unfinished business here. So I can type, there was a new owner. Maybe we're adding a third person. I can put my comment there. So every time I come here, I can review my notes and say, hey, what notes, where did I leave off? When I'm all finished, I can say, whatever you want. I don't want to get too involved in that. But then when we're done getting all the information, we can check it off. I usually don't check this box until after we get a ratified contract, because then I know I've put buyers' names, agents' names, and so forth. That stays unchecked until it's complete. Pre-listing prep. Even though that's crossed out, it's because we have gone in there, but I can double click on here and add more information. I'll show you what I do with my pre-listing as I gather more information. My client calls me and says, oh, I forgot to tell you I have a whole house fan, or we have a generator that's staying with the house. I mentioned before, we normally fill all these in, correct? But this is where I put all my notes. When my client calls me and says, hey, okay, hold on. Yes, hold on. So when you click here, I put edit e-sign. This is how you're going to populate these fields, go to next. I can go back, I can add Sharon, I can add third person who now is a seller on the property. I can add all those fields here because this is where I keep my notes. So if something happens, whoever, Jasmine or whoever my co-lister is can come in here and we can share our notes here, right? So you can put them here. But I might put, you know, whole house fan, whatever the person tells me. I like also when I ask for any upgrades, I always ask them to email me a list of upgrades. When they email them to me, I copy them right here because it's that one place I can always go to say, hey, you know, because I have, let's say 10 listings, I can pull up the MLS, 10 listings in 1 week. I can also go to Brokermint and refresh. The agent would say, does your house on 123 Sample Street have a whole house fan? I can't remember because I'm killing it out here with all these listings. This is where you can go to check your notes and gather that information, especially fill in things. If these things are blank and your seller hasn't provided this information, it's a great place to go to keep everything updated. All right, someone unmute. All right, so I'm going to come out of here and just move us through. We got through the listing agreement disclosures, and I want to show you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Okay. Darlene has a question.
Oh, I'm ready. Oh, so when you go back into when you were where the disclosures were, so can you go back there? Because it's a question I did have. Like you were going to e-sign, yeah, yeah. Like you were going to e-sign it so that you can add documents. I want to go to where you're going to add documents, yeah. My question is when you were in to add documents. When you're in to add documents, you have company library, you have MAR, you have onboarding, you have PG car. At the bottom here, you have transaction. Is that where you can go to actually go into that transaction to get documents?
Okay, Darlene wants me to check something here in our disclosures. We're going to, it's like we're going to edit, right? She wants to know if we can add a form. We're going to go back here. And this gives us the documents we have selected. And she says when she wants to add a form, we're going to come here. This might be the documents that we've, let's see, Maryland listing. These are the ones that, it looks like these are the ones attached to our transaction. There's nothing in unsorted. Oh, it isn't unsorted. So, okay, so I think this is what she's asking. She was saying that when she comes here, we have tabs for company library, MAR, simple onboarding, and PG car. And then she saw this transaction tab and she wanted to know if we can pull documents over there. I think this transaction tab, it looks like you can pull something from here and put it in your contract. And I'm glad you brought that up because sometimes I will download a document, right? And we put it in unsorted, but we want to add it to the contract. And once upon a time, I used to split things up, move them around, paste them around and things like that. But we want to add our signed listing agreement to some other document we have in there, then we can click it here and add that. We can add that. With these check boxes, it does allow you to add that to your transaction. I had never, I love it. So I didn't even see that See how it's grayed out here? And what Darlene was just bringing to our attention, she just discovered earlier this week that you can click on that and documents that you have uploaded, and I'll show you how to do that. Documents you have uploaded to your transaction, you can pull them here and put them into whatever document that you are working on. So I'm going to come out of here. And let's see. I want to go over a few more things, but because I don't have a lot of documents here, I will show you where she's referring to. So when we save documents here we can go to under assets, we can go to our document tab and we can see our documents here and make changes. And we can go to unsorted documents. And this is where we can edit those documents, move them around. If we go to edit, we can merge them with other documents if we want, if we have you can even do this as you're representing a buyer. You're putting your purchase agreement together. Then you're adding those disclosures from another listing. This is where you can merge, you can split documents. This is what you can do in unsorted documents. Yes. So Aurelia said you can also assign them. So if we've moved something here and we now want to assign them, these are our choices where we can assign those documents. If it's not listed here and we're creating a new form, then you can create new and then assign it there, right? Does anyone have a
Angela,
question? Yes.
I do. Now, I tell you one area where I've struggled with in this area when I've kind of been like a little unorganized. Say when you go under the documents and then the unsorted, it's like by the time I'm completely finished with everything, I kind of have documents everywhere. And I know Jasmine has probably had to clean that up a few times for me.
So
is there like a right place to kind of really move stuff?
So I am guilty of this, and I have lots of unsorted documents, and I would be afraid to be in the room with Jasmine when she opens up my transaction. So
Me too.
I'm serious. So what I would recommend doing, because we want to keep things organized, but what I've started to do is as I'm adding my unsorted documents and then I merge them together, I go through and I start deleting them there. I don't think we're so concerned with what's in unsorted documents, especially if you're assigning them to where they're supposed to go. Jasmine's concerned with coming in here and looking at documents, right? If Maryland listing checklist, here it is. This is where she's going to see the documents, where it tells us to upload. This is where Jasmine sees it. If we want to approve things and send them to her, this is what she's looking at. So let's keep it organized. If you are going to have a dozen or 2 dozen documents in unsorted, make sure you've assigned them where they go. So that's more so for you to go and say, oh, I was playing with some things and adding a bunch of things. That's more of a secondary reference. Let's put it that way. As long as we're assigning it to where it belongs, you should be okay. But get in the practice of when you're moving documents there and merging them together, delete the ones that you're not using if you don't need them. You all don't want to see mine. One day we'll do a training and I'll just show you guys some of my behind the scenes.
I know Jasmine is probably putting her head on her hand when she looks at mine.
Well, we're not gonna after today, we're all gonna agree that we're never gonna do that again, and we're gonna keep less than 10 documents in unsorted. That's still too many. 0. Either way, as long as you have assigned it, I don't think she's even going to look at your unsorted. She only has to go there if we haven't assigned it where we're supposed to.
I'm sorry, Jazz.
Yes. So anything that you need Jasmine to see, then you can select the documents. I'm going back to my Maryland listing. And you can, let's say our property disclosures. Oh, Jasmine, something new happened. I didn't really know what to do. So is it here or submit? See here, if we click here and we hit submit, which I'm not going to do, but if we hit submit there, then Jasmine will get that document, be able to review it for you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Yep. So these are some really good questions. I'm not going to get through all of this, and I'm really glad because you guys have brought up some things that I'm actually, gaining some more information from. So I have another question. That's a great question. So your full listing, once it's signed, your ratified contracts and ratified lease. Says your broker, and don't forget that. Yeah, so if there's any addendum to the contract that have been signed by all parties that you would normally, include into that full transaction, you want to make sure those are the ones that need to be submitted. Another question from Aurelia. Okay, so Aurelia was just pointing out that if you click this drop down button here under action, and you have documents that have been uploaded, ready to go, ready to be ready to submit, instead of clicking each individual one, you can go to action and say, all right, Jasmine, I'm sending you everything. And then you hit submit for review, and then she can see all the documents that you have completed. Okay. I know. Any other questions? Is everyone still hanging in there with us? Darlene has one. Darlene, you want to come up here? Darlene has a question she's going to ask you guys.
Say you, so say this, something happens and you have to do another disclosure thing, and this would be on the buying side. So if you were in here for buying and then that didn't go through, can you use the same checklist or you have to use a different one? So you just delete this one and then just do another one, okay.
Okay, so Darlene was asking, when you're working with the buyer, say you prepared an offer and you created the documents necessary for Maryland, is it purchase or? Here we go. If you're working with a buyer and you've selected Maryland buyer as your checklist, say you created all these documents and you submitted the offer wasn't accepted. She was asking, can you amend that? And it's best to delete that checklist and create a new checklist, right? Do you recommend deleting them or just leaving them? Okay, so it will allow you to add multiple checklists, but in order to, alleviate any confusion, you'll want to delete what's there and then just put your new.
Question about that, Angela.
Somebody over there is unmuted. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, no, it would delete the whole checklist. That's a great question. Jasmine, do you recommend just saving that agreement and then creating the new checklist? You want me to repeat it again? So Aurelia's going to come up here and she's going to ask this question.
So my question is, can you hear me?
No.
Yes. Okay. My question is, if you have the buyer's checklist, your agreement, your original agreement that you guys signed with the buyer is in there. So you have to be careful because that's your signed agreement. If you delete that checklist, everything is gone. So what I'm thinking is if you had an offer, a contract, to delete that offer out of your checklist, not the whole checklist. That's what my question.
Thank you. That was a good nugget there. That's definitely good to know.
Can you guys hear me? As long
Yes.
as everybody can hear me. Okay, perfect. So Aurelia, that was a great question. And we started that question by Angela pointing out how a transaction can get very cluttered very fast if you're writing offers for a buyer on multiple properties and a buyer doesn't get their offer accepted. Suppose you go through, 5 or 10 different offers. So now all of that can become very convoluted. So what you want to do is you want to add a different checklist. So on the left-hand side of the screen where it says add checklist, if you hit that button, it will literally allow you to add multiple checklists. So that's one of the things that you can do so as to keep the transactions separate. And what you want to do is just assign, and if it's possible to rename it so you know exactly what checklist that goes to, because Aurelia brought up a great point. While we want to delete all of the documents that are not necessary, you want to be sure as to maintain your buyer brokerage agreement. And if you simply delete the full transaction or the full checklist, it will delete your buyer brokerage agreement. So you can, maintain your buyer brokerage agreement, create a new transaction, and any other documents that would just be, kind of frivolous because you no longer need them, you can go ahead and delete them from there as well. That being said, in your unsorted documents, when you have multiple transactions, all of your unsorted documents are going to filter into one reservoir. That's why Angela is recommending, and I definitely want you guys to delete things that are from transactions that you are actually not using. If they're offers that didn't get accepted, you don't need those documents. You only need to keep ratified contracts. Yes. Sure. Void checklist. Yes, you can void the checklist. Mm-hmm. Can you void the first checklist? You can. There instead of deleting it and to over with the broker. Yeah. And then keep the other. Hit that. So hit void checklist so everybody can see it. Angela asked a great question. So she was wondering if you can void the checklist instead of deleting it. And yes, you can void the checklist instead of deleting it. So what she's doing now is showing everybody on the screen what it's going to look like if the checklist is voided. Okay. All right. So that was a great question, Aurelia. Hopefully everybody got that answer.
So I'm a
Excellent.
little
So
confused. I always wondered, what is the difference between voiding and deleting? I mean, I know the words, but in this case, what's the difference between voiding and deleting?
So it seems, click on action again, Angela, and we're going to walk through this together. It is, that could be it. Walk through it. So in that checklist, delete that one. Go to one where you actually have tasks in there and void it, and let's see what it'll do. So click on action and click on void. I think I need to save somewhere. I have a document with, let's say, agency. We're going to have to play with this a little bit more. I'm not sure if you guys could hear what Angela was saying. So Angela, unmute yourself, Angela, and walk them through what it is that you're doing.
Okay, I'm just going through here and I'm because there was no data in there and nothing that was uploaded. I think that might have been why it's blank. So now we're going to try to create 2 checklists. And we're going to see if we void a document, will it will it still show our, at least our broker agreement? So the first one here, I'm going to try to avoid this, even though we did upload one document, void checklist. This was our original, but if we go back here, it does save that one document. So like Aurelia, if you have created your buyer broker agreement, it's crossed out, but we can still access it. We still have access to all of our activity. There's our document right there that you can access. Okay, but we can still go to our new one and say, oh, I'm writing another offer because my buyer, their offer wasn't accepted. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to start over. We can leave this information out. I'm sure there's a way you can move it over, but you wouldn't have to. We're kind of moving forward with trying to write that offer, but we can still refer back to our voided checklist to say, hey, I didn't delete my documents. I voided them so that I can move on to my new checklist.
Gotcha. Okay.
You can't, it's not that you want to unvoid it. You just need those documents saved there. No, if you delete the checklist, everything will be gone. I'm sure that maybe, I don't know that there's a history that we can locate, but to delete a checklist, it's gone. If you void the checklist, see how we did a signed agreement here? You have a buyer broker agreement with someone. We created a new checklist because we wanted to be able to have a new checklist for our new offer, but we can go back to the previous one. And this document, even though it's crossed out, we can go to our comments section and we can access the document here. Where am I going? Here's the document as well. And this is all your activity. So if you go within the checklist, the activity over here is per checklist, but it looks like this is all of the activity for this particular transaction. This is transaction activity, and these are specific to the property. Yeah, different checklists we were writing new offers for. No. No. Well, I can show you this. So we deleted a couple, right? If I go to activity, deleted tasks here. So it may save things that you deleted. Yes, here. But you can at least have proof that you deleted something that was very valuable to you. But if you weren't aware, so I use the comment. I use the comment and activity over here all the time. Because I like, if I'm on a call and I don't like writing notes on paper anymore, because then I think I was talking to someone else. Oh, I don't want to go off too far, but we had a training and I was looking for, oh my goodness, what did I need? So, you lose that one note and you can't find it. So here I try to, when I'm on the phone, I have my Brokermint up. Oh, my client from DC is calling. I pull this up and I'm prepared to, I'm asking him, hey, did you get your inspection report back? I can go right to inspection report and start telling everything that he said to me right then and there. So it's a way to go back to here and use this to manage each transaction and conversations. Okay. Anyone have any questions? No one else? Okay. So I want to go over a few more things before we run out of time. How much time do we have left? Okay. So we're not going to be able to go over everything. So I'm going to come out of here, and after we've gone through the listing agreement, we've gone over our disclosures. Now we have all the documents necessary for us to now go to this listing appointment, right? Not to jump ahead too quickly, but I'll go to our library. Now that you have all those things, you're ready for your presentation. You're ready for that appointment. I'll bring to your attention, in Brokermint, we have our broker library. And because we're working with sellers, this is how I'll wrap this up. Because we're working with sellers, I just want to pay close attention to some of these things here. When I joined Porterhouse, I went through the things I needed at the time. When you have spare time, go through all of these tabs. There's so much more here that's so valuable. So I remember, talking to Jasmine about, oh, I had a listing and, I did my open house, and she was like, well, was asking me how I planned for it. Now, I have a system for open houses. However, Jasmine said, do you know there's an open house checklist? And I said, no. So I came through, checked the open house checklist, and it just so happened most of the things I had accomplished. But there were a few things that I normally didn't do with my open houses. So then now I incorporated those for the next open house, but all this was available to me the whole time. So I recommend everyone come through here, even though we have a few minutes. I'm just going to go through some of the things here. When you're, again, we're talking about preparing for that listing appointment. So agent scripts. I love this because it tells you how to work with sellers, right? It tells you, from texting to calls, if you're trying to get that appointment, even emails, it prepares you so that, you're available, and ready for that opportunity. Some other things that CMA, we talked about needing to do a CMA. Well, if you don't know how to do it, here it is. I remember talking to Darlene. I don't know if it was Darlene or someone else who said, do you do CMAs on HomeSnap? Well, you can do them on HomeSnap. Maybe it was Shay but this right here, it shows you how to create a CMA using HomeSnap and Bright. So whichever your preference is, when you're up at 1 o'clock in the morning doing some real estate and no one's awake, you have Brokermint to kind of go through and answer some of those questions. Right. So Darlene was saying she does use a quick one for HomeSnap when she's with her client. We have DC listing documents. We have them for Prince George's County. There were some things I want to bring to your attention here. Letters to sellers. That's great when you're working with sellers. This is another one. Listing remarks and showing instructions. It tells you what to do. If you say, oh, I don't know what to put here in the MLS, or I don't know, I'm not sure what to put. This tells you what to do. Agent remarks, it talks about Bright agent remarks and showing time showing instructions. If you don't know what to put, use your resources. They're here for you, okay? We have our Maryland listing template for PG County. You can go through, this is the template, all the blank forms that you would use. My House Porter, if you're doing a listing. There's so much I wanted to talk about. So really quickly, another thing they have here under scripts. Let me show you really quick. When you go under, where are they? Oh, agent scripts. They have this right here, overcoming common listing objections. If you know you're going to a listing appointment, are you aware of what the common objections are? If you're not, you should be reading this or searching up what those are so that you're prepared to answer those with confidence. The very first one people ask, will you reduce your, why don't I click on it really quickly? I'm not even going to open it up, but it says, will you reduce your commission? How do we respond to that? There's dozens of really great ways to respond to that. This one says, I'm not going to cut corners when I sell your home, so I can't cut my commission. Bottom line is we're not a discount brokerage, right? And another one that we've talked about is, maybe you're competing with another agent, right? I've got 5 listing appointments, or the seller's interviewing 5 agents. And, they may say, well, I have an agent who's going to do it for 5%. And another response can be, just as quickly as they were to discount their own money, how quickly will they be discount yours? So it's just different things that we can use, to just really stand our ground and show, in our presentation, we show our value and we stand by that. We know what we have to offer. They deserve the best. We're going to give them the best, right? I only have a few minutes. So I'm going to go through some of these really quickly. Listings, Bright MLS brokerage disclosures. If you need to reference some of the things that we talked about, they're here. There was a couple of, and then the very last thing at the very bottom, I stay here, by the way. This is where I stay, working with sellers. So if you come down here, all of this information is so valuable when you're going on your listing appointment. Here's that change of status agreement we talked about. Change of status. If you have to change the status, you can do so here, right? Change the expiration date, different things that you want to change. You can change that there, the price. Get your home show ready. Why not bring this flyer to your listing appointment? If they're ready to go, you need to be ready to go. So bring this with you so that, if I have different things that I want to bring, but if I just have this for, that once in a lifetime where someone says, put my house on the market tomorrow or this week, you have this checklist that you can give them to prepare them. Listing agent contact review temp. Oh, this is another good one. this template right here, so if you're gonna list a property, you wanna be prepared for offers to come in. They could come in immediately, the very first day. Multiple offers, we've dealt with those situations, but this allows you to plug in all the most important, valuable information so that you can compare them, and it helps you to be able to present that to your seller. Menu of services, it allows us to market the different ways we're going to, we can list their property. So, you know, we list at 6% or more, right? 7, 8, you know. So with this document, okay, so this is our menu of services. When you go to list, you have your Pearl, Platinum, and Diamond. If you present your listing at 6%, maybe you're providing additional services for 7%, you can make that available. But when we deal with some of those common objections where a seller says, oh, will you discount your services? Will you reduce your commission? We don't reduce our commission, but we can offer them a different package. One that provides a still high quality service, but it does allow them some savings for 3.5% flat fee, okay? Jasmine said you earn the same amount as a listing agent because you get 3.5%, okay? So there's a whole training, it would take a whole training to go over all of this. Some of you should be at least familiar with it, but if you're not, you definitely should look into that. But that's another, that was on my nose, under, seller objections. You can pull that out and then provide that as an option for them as well. We have our listing presentation here. Again, overcoming listing objections. Not only, it's the one that I showed you earlier, but if you read through that document, it's just 6 pages, but then they give you keywords that you should and shouldn't use. So some people don't think that this is a big deal, but I actually like it. Sometimes, you refer to signatures. That document, it has you refer to them as approvals. You haven't approved this document yet. Instead of signing, go through those and look at some of the terms. I feel like I want to pique everyone's interest to go dive into here. So let me show you. She's over there. It's only 6 pages. You really can read it in no time, but it's such good information here. I'll go over some of these. These on this front page, I think, are the most common ones. I first thought, oh, 6 pages of objections. It's a little different, but I want to find a house before putting mine back on the market. I just dealt with this month and last month a seller who wanted to buy. What do you tell them? What do they do? So this is going to prepare you for that. I want them to be 100% on board with selling their home, and I prepare them for when your house is on the market, then we can start purchasing. We can go, I pique their interest. I show them things through email. I'll send them things. We do not go out to look at a single property until their house is under contract. That's how I do it. Their house is under contract. Well, I'll put it this way. When their house goes on the market, I'll start showing them, okay? But the goal is I prepare them that your house to be under contract puts you in a stronger position as a buyer if we're juggling selling a home and trying to purchase one. But read through these responses. We're going to have to think about it. Well, there's lots of responses for that too, but these are very common ones. When you go to that appointment, you want to leave with their signature. If they have to think about it, you should at least know what they want to. I must not have answered all your concerns. What is it that you want to think about? There's probably a way you can word that where you are bringing them in to continue to have that conversation. And this is another good one. If let's say it's expired listing, right? Their objection, we're going to wait to relist. They don't want to put it back on the market right away. I understand your concern. If I brought you a full price offer today, would you accept it? Of course they would. They would. So, you don't just say, oh, okay, I got an objection. Be prepared for some form of response. Your response may not get their signature, but you definitely want to pique their interest and keep them wanting to know more or to work with you. But going through this document, what are you going to do differently than the last agent? I can answer those all day. But there's a lot of, I want you guys to read through this, but I'm going to skip through words that close a sale. Read these. I read some of these and I do this and I felt, I was like, go ahead, Ange. But But I want you to go through this and really be prepared. So if you're expecting a lot of listings in 2023, I'm expecting some in 2022, and there's only 2 months left. But if that's you, go through here and read these so that you can close deals quicker and get those listings. Words that kill sales. Don't you want to know what they say? Well, you're gonna have to come back and read it because there were really good ones in there. Pre-listing prep, you guys know I've exhausted that, but I love that document. And then finally, these sample disclosures and sample listing documents. The reason I didn't go through all the contracts and all those disclosures as much as I would have liked to, they're filled out for you right here. If you say, oh, I've never done this before, I don't know what to put there, go through these samples, and then where you see, why would they put a signature there? Read it, and if you don't understand why, this is the time to ask why those signatures are there, so that when you are, filling out your listing of documents, you're already prepared. You know what that seller is going to want. Okay. Like a lot of it has to do with marketing. What should I put here? What, should I disclose existing offers? You should know why you would recommend that they not do that, or that they would want to disclose offers. Okay. So, right. So usually, you can answer or suggest that they initial what's in, you can, recommend that they answer those in the best interest so that you can represent them the best. But there's different answers. You just want to make sure you're clear on what their demands are and what they want. I've had people say, I don't want a house in front of my property. I don't want a sign in front of my house for whatever reason. I have a neighbor right now. She says, when I sell my house, I don't want anyone to know about it. And I thought there's a challenge. I'm gonna have to figure that one out. She doesn't want anyone in the neighborhood to know. Well, that's the beauty of having the MLS. We don't have to put a sign out there, but we can reach so many people without her neighbors knowing, even though they have access to the internet. So that's all I have time to share today. I have a whole lot more that I'd like to share. So you guys, hopefully we can, go over some of these other things in our next training. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? So thanks, Cheryl. I'm glad that you liked it. And I hope that everyone grabs something valuable. What I would also like, when you guys listen to these trainings, we do want to know that we're providing valuable information. So, the next time you're on Realty Talks, when Jasmine or Anita says, hey, give me something good, share something new with me. If it was something that you learned in that training, maybe keep some notes so that you can share, because there are people who may hop on a training and feel like, heck, I missed out on that last training. And they may want to go back and, they're all valuable. I know we hear the same things over and over again sometimes. And I need to hear that so that it becomes like a second language to me, or it's just a habit to me. So, just try when we have these trainings to be as interactive and responsive as you can. I know there's people who are dual career. You're in the car, you don't have an opportunity to share, but it is important that, at some point, even if it's at the next training, you say, hey, these are some nuggets that I can take with me. When you share that with the people who weren't on the previous training, that might be what they need to hear in order to go back and listen to it, or just your feedback was enough to make a difference in their career. So I highly encourage that. Any other questions? And I thank everybody for your feedback. I know that even if you didn't give feedback, I know that you were busy taking notes. So that's probably why you didn't have an opportunity to do so. But I know there's a lot of times where I'm watching the trainings and I'm not giving feedback because I'm really taking it in. I'm writing notes and I'm trying to capture as much information, because otherwise I have to go back and listen to the recording, which is fine, but I'm trying to take the notes because for me, I'm a writer. I have to write it down I got to see it. I got to write it down. I got to hear it. So.
Thank you, Angela and Anita and everyone else.
You are welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you, Angela. So, and you know, that was a beautiful job. And so I'm sure that everyone got a lot out of this evening's training. And just like I always say, it is falls under the category of new agent training. However, it is not just for the new agents. I mean, just going through this process this evening, I learned something new. I learned something new. So you can always learn something new through the training. So don't think that, just because you're not a new agent, that there's nothing for you. So again, thank everyone for hanging in here with us and for participating. I'm assuming that no one has any more questions. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording if there are no other questions.